Okay, we're back with another one of the main panelists here at the third annual DC Music Summit 2020, representing the legal side of things, right?
Indeed. My name is John Good. I'm with the Washington Area Lawyers for the Arts.
Right.
And what we do is we provide legal services to creatives within Virginia, Maryland, and the District of Columbia.
Okay. And I think you mentioned earlier that is it pro bono?
Yeah, that's correct. I'd like to say that attorneys do this out of the goodness of their heart, and many of them do.
Yeah.
But for district attorneys, people who are licensed here, they have to do a certain number of pro bono hours a year in order to keep their license. So what we do is we help them fulfill their obligation to the legal community and also help them channel that energy towards the artistic community.
Right. You know, one thing when we talk about music, we always forget the business side, of it.
Absolutely.
Hence the term music biz. So tell people, why is it so important for people to have legal representation?
Well,
That's kind of tricky
that's
answer.
a very loaded question. It can take me hours to answer that. But there are, when you create, when you actually write a song, and the song comes from you, it is actually an original piece of content that you have created, and you have certain rights under the law to that content. One is property right, and intellectual property is your ownership of that song, right? That lyric, that rhythm track, that beat, that whatever it happens to be, that melody, right? And you have rights under the law to copyright that, so that you can maintain control of your work moving forward. So if somebody wants to cover that tune, they have to come to you, get permission. They have to pay you to do that if they want to use it on a television, if they want to put it out on YouTube or use it as part of some other type of sequential advertising. They have to pay you, remunerate you for your creative property.
Right. So I know when it comes to trademarking, anything, sometimes what is mentioned is, the poor man's trademark. How viable is the poor man? Is it viable enough?
It used to be a thing. It used to be able to take all your music, put it into an envelope, put a timestamp on it at the post office or something like that, and then send it into the Library of Congress. You can't do that any longer. But you can sit at home now and take a digital copy of your work and license it over your computer. It's about, I don't know, they just changed the pricing last year. I think it's $45 for a compilation, $23, $25 for an individual piece.
Oh, okay.
But honestly, it's well worth the investment, because think about it. If let's say you copyright 100 of your works, let's just say, let's say one of them gets picked up, you would get a percentage back on the use of that work moving forward. It's amazing how many artists put their work out there, say, this is me, book me for a live gig, but they never think about
copyrighting
about that, right? And that's the sort of residual income that's your retirement plan, because you will continue to receive royalties on the performance of that music. There's lots of different ways to license your music. I won't get into that either. But there's lots of different ways for that music to continue to be out there working for you, even if you wrote it 30 years ago. Right?
Yeah. So when it comes to people like ASCAP and BMI, where after you leave them, you split the 50-50 profits while you were signed to them.
I wish it were 50-50. It is not.
50-50?
No.
Oh, wow.
Far less than that. Yeah, the performing rights organizations actually are looking at a couple of different things. They're looking at grand performance rights, where you license the work as, let's say it's a theater piece, and you work directly with that organization for them to pay you a fee to use your work. They get the score, they get the script, they can perform that kind of thing. Then there's small performance rights, which is like streaming. Individual, when you got your headphones on, you're listening to that. They get a portion of that as well.
Really?
Right, absolutely.
Okay. So with the new technology, streaming and everything, how important really is it to have legal representation,
It is extremely important, because a lot of the boilerplate stuff that you agree to when you post something up on YouTube or if you put something on SoundCloud, you lose a lot of the rights to your music. If you have an upfront contract and legal representation to go around their boilerplate, if you will, and protect your music, it's very important. This is a very, very fluid area of art that we've got right now. It's constantly changing. I mean, you and I in our lifetimes have seen how many different formats that music can be put out. And now suddenly you put it, somebody with a cell phone takes you working on the street, and it's out there. It's gone. You've lost it. So you've got to protect your work. It's very important.
So let's say someone does cell phone record you doing something. How do you try to put a lid on how far you can go?
Yeah, there you go. Okay, so that's when you would have your legal representation issue something called a cease and desist letter, which tells them, hey, you have to take that down. A lot of the streaming services now have automated takedown notices, where they see that something is copywritten, they'll automatically extract it, and they have bots and AI that kind of surfs the content now on YouTube and all those kinds of places. It kind of does that for you. But the point is to have somebody in your back pocket to say, oh, hang on, that's my clients. You need to stop using that. Otherwise, you need to pay us for it.
Now, how about when it comes to names of a group of artists? Because there is a hip hop group out of New York who went by name Smith & Wesson, spelled S-M-I-F. Wessun. Obviously, we're sent this letter by Smith and Wesson, changed their name to another name, but then in the last 10, 15 years, changed the name back to Smith and Wesson. Now, I'm guessing they probably paid Smith and Wesson something?
Not necessarily. It could have been that they went to court and they lost the case, or they won the case, rather, and they weren't able to go ahead and use that word. The point is, Smith and Wesson, the actual handgun manufacturer, had a copyright. They wouldn't have pursued that unless they had gone to the United States Patent and Trademark Office and the Library of Congress and registered their work. Without that basis, without the registered work, you have nothing to stand on in court. You could say, I wrote War and Peace. I can prove it. Here's the manuscript of it right here. If it's not registered with them, how in the world would they know who wrote it first? You or the original author, right? So it's very possible that your Smith and Wesson guys won the case and said it's not exactly the same. It's a different market. It's a completely different thing. We can still use that terminology.
So could the spelling of a name help their cause?
No, I'm not an attorney and I'm not a judge, but the judge could very well look at that and go, there's enough difference between Smith and Wesson to differentiate the two. The fact that they're in completely different markets, one in the music industry, the other one in the handgun and firearms industry, there's no compete, no harm, no foul. You can use that term.
And one more question, I know you have somewhere to go. So with the DC Music Summit, what attracted you to want to be a part of the panel?
Well, actually, we've been a part of this summit for 3 years now, since its inception, and it's an opportunity for us to get in front of the music community. The music community is a very difficult group for us to get in front of because musicians, as a general rule, are individual artists, and they work in concentric circles. Very rarely do you find them in the same place. We've heard about that again and again today about cultural, connectivity, and where do we have a creative space where we can all network. We don't have that, really. I mean, you're playing a gig, and the other guy's playing a gig across town, so how are you ever going to meet? It's easy for us to get in front of visual artists, because museums and galleries tend to be gathering places. It's very easy for us to get in front of dance companies and theater companies, because they do group presentations. Artists is very hard, or for musicians, it's very hard. And that's why we're very happy to be part of this organization.
All right, and so for any artist that's going to be watching this, please let them know the name of the organization that you represent and how they can get in contact.
Absolutely. Again, it's the Washington Area Lawyers for the Arts, WALA DC, WALADC.org is our website.
You owe it to yourself. You owe it to yourself. Get legal representation if you're going to be an artist of some sort. Thank you. We appreciate you.
Thank you.
Thank you.